Hey guys, what's up? My name is Blaze and I'm back for a new video, and this one is for design a game, not for code bites. And that's because, well, for one, I've been sick. You didn't already know. I was sick last week, so I couldn't upload a video, but at the same time, it was also, I guess, Easter, so I had the time to recover. Before I actually get into the video, I just want to mention that the upload that did go up last week, that was supposed to go up. I planned that. So we're not changing the kind of stuff that's going to be on this channel. We're adding stuff onto it. So we're trying to develop the channel into not quite variety, but definitely have more varied stuff related to games development and gaming in general. So we're not changing anything. We're adding more stuff. You might start seeing new tutorial types. You'll definitely be seeing other engines, not just GameMaker. But that's just something that I want to clarify. We're not changing anything. We're adding new stuff on. So the reason why this video is not an actual GameMaker tutorial video is because this is quite a complex tutorial. This came up once or twice. The same person kind of made the request to do a skill tree, and at first I was really reluctant, and I still kind of am reluctant to actually do a tutorial on that because skill trees are quite an advanced topic, and I don't think a lot of beginners realize that until they start trying it for themselves. So I have a feeling that either the person that requested it is testing me as a programmer for whatever reason, or they're a beginner that doesn't realize the complexity of what they're asking. But I'm going to try my best to develop a user or beginner friendly method of creating a skill tree. Let me show you some examples of some really good and some of them really simple skill trees that we've got. So here we have the Final Fantasy X right at the top here. Final Fantasy X, the Sphere Grid. That was really cool because it kind of broke away from, at the time, it broke away from the traditional, which is like Diablo style skill trees. It broke away from that and it took a completely new approach to how you develop character. At the same time, the Final Fantasy XIII Crystarium system, or Crystarium system, not entirely sure how you pronounce that, but that system there in Final Fantasy XIII allowed a player to basically mold the character's skills depending on the roles that they play. In Xcom, which is from this list probably the most simple type of skill tree, you had essentially a class or a combat role, whether it was the assault class or the sniper class, the heavy class or whatever, but you also had ranks, which gave you access to more advanced skills. Diablo, like I mentioned earlier, had a pretty traditional skill tree. Not something that you would, want to break away from if you're making a Diablo style game, but at the same time, this is the hardest. The traditional skill tree would be the hardest. I would recommend, if you're a beginner, to avoid doing a Diablo style skill tree altogether. In fact, avoid skill trees if you're just starting out, because it's quite an advanced thing. Borderlands kind of combined XCOM and the Diablo skill trees into its own unique thing, in which you had a specific combat role, but then you also had specializations within that role too. And in Dragon's Dogma, you had kind of like the job ranking, and then you also had a points system too. So these are just some of the different ways that you can sort of implement or draw inspiration from when you're designing your own skill tree. What I'm going to show you guys today, or rather I'm going to lay the foundation for you guys today, and what I will make a series. It's probably going to be a short series on its own. A series of, I guess, videos, obviously, and maybe I'll do a write-up. Not entirely sure about that, but definitely videos. We'll be creating an XCOM style rank and class skill tree system. The reason why I'm doing that is, like I said, it's the easiest to implement. And for me, personally, I think it would be the most beginner friendly. Something like Diablo, and really anything outside of, if you're leaning something towards Diablo, unless you are really confident with your programming, I would advise that you stay away from it. And especially if you're new to programming in general, stay away from developing a skill tree, at least until you start learning about things like DS grids and going out there and learning things and developing your skills a little bit more before you come back to doing skill trees, because it is something that is not beginner friendly at all. Like, no matter how hard you try, it won't be easy to pick up. So let's go into designing it. Let's design our skill tree. That mark is there. I drew on the wrong layer. Great. Awesome start. So let's create a new layer, and let's actually write out the logic that we are going to need. If you've never tried doing this before, I suggest you try it. This is basically kind of like concept art, but for programming. So try writing out your ideas on paper first, because more often than not, you'll be able to see what the program looks like or how it should run before you actually start trying it out. Kind of imagine this as a map to your, I guess, your adventure in programming, if you can call it that. So let's start. What are the objects that we'll need? Well, we will actually need a unit, so object unit. Remember, we are doing an Xcom skill tree. So we will need the object unit, so the actual character that you control during a game. And what we actually need to get from there is the unit's rank as well as their class. But what's actually important is the rank. We also need a, I guess, a skill menu. So, menu, M for menu, skills. And that needs to it checks the rank and class. So in the skills menu, it actually already has, the way I picture it, it has a table of all of the ranks and all of the skills and all of the classes for each of those skills. But because it checks your rank and your class, you'll only have access to, at least when you see it on screen, you'll only have access to the skills that are relevant to your class. But we're still planning this, remember. So it checks. I don't know why I drew that line there, but it will check. And then we can actually choose skills. So choose skill. Now, if you've ever played XCOM Enemy Unknown or XCOM 2, then you'll know that you can only choose one skill per rank. Even if you have the option of 2 skills, you can only choose 1. So the XCOM skill tree looks like this. So you've got like rank 1 is up here, and then it branches off into 2. So, well, why don't I just move that over here? Because it's easier. The XCOM skill tree kind of looks like this, and then for a while it would be separated. You would have to specialize. So it forces you to specialize very early on in your unit's development. And that's a good thing, because at least then you'll know exactly what your unit will look like. So there you go. That's what the XCOM skill tree looks like. And really, when you think about it like this, it doesn't really look that complicated. So once you've chosen a skill, one of 2 skills, then you equip that skill to the unit. That's really all that happens. Equip, and that's it. That is the logic of our skill tree. Of course, this looks simple, but unfortunately it isn't. Because here's the thing, right? Skill, each one of these nodes here is a skill. And so to make things easier, if you're if you're more familiar with your programming in GML, you'll know that it pays to have a parent object for all of your skills. So each skill is a child of parent object, right? Obviously. if I can spell today, parent skills, right? Because for example, you have, I don't know, let's say you have a skill called, for snipers, maybe you have a skill called headshot. And then you have another skill called, I don't know, pistol proficiency, or, you know, height advantage or something like that. Well, they're both skills, but you don't want to have to write the same kind of code again and again and again. No, you don't want that to happen. In fact, if anything, you would probably want that to be more in line with just telling it to activate. And then each of those skills has their own code for when they do activate. All right, so we're using some inheritance here. So if you've never heard of inheritance, don't worry, we'll be going through that in the actual skills tutorial itself. So here we go. Once we've equipped it, we can't choose that same skill. So up here, we only have the choice of one skill, but down here, we have a choice of two. Now, if we choose one skill, we need to lock that out. We need to make sure that they've already chosen a skill. So we need to also keep track of not just their rank, but also the skill that they have. Really, when you're checking your skills in the skills menu, you should already have an idea of, well, the skills menu will automatically check whether or not they've already got the skill. If they do, then they will lock it out. Well, so that you can't have both skills, otherwise you'll have an overpowered character. But this is essentially all that it looks like. So pause the video, take the time to absorb all of this, because really I can only explain so much to you guys at this level. Once we actually get into the tutorial, then I will start explaining things a little bit more. So pause the video now and just try to absorb that. If you have a question, then please write it down in the comments below. I know I've always been telling you guys, if you have questions or if you're struggling on a particular concept, then ask one below. Not a lot of people have asked questions. I'm going to assume that either you understood the tutorial or you didn't stick around long enough. And if not, then you watch the whole thing, but you're too nervous to ask. Don't be nervous to ask. Just, you know, if you get an error, then you get an error. Just tell me, right? And I'll help you as much as I can. The reason why I'm emphasizing it here in particular is because this is a tough subject. I'm not sure why I'm showing you these skills, but I suppose better to show you guys the complexity of it than to have you guys stumble around asking in the forums for somebody to do it for you. But by no means do I think that this is easy. It's not easy. So I really encourage you guys, if you're nervous, just ask a question. I'll do my best to help you guys out. So that's all from me. In the next video, we'll actually start designing the skills first. So we're going to be creating an entire skill tree, but we'll be starting from the main components, right? That's going to be the first thing. So we'll design skills first, and then we'll design the skill tree itself, and then we'll sort of put everything together and make sure that it all works and that you can sort of do stuff. So that's all from me, guys. Hopefully you can stick around, and hopefully if I'm feeling better, I can put the face cam back up. However, until then, hope you guys have learned something. If you have questions, by all means, ask, because I know that this is going to be a tough tough topic for you guys to tackle. So that's all for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.